wonderful guest for you all this evening. My special guest tonight is Masaki Miyagawa, and Masaki has over 10 years' experience in the esoteric field and comes from a 400-year-old lineage of Buddhist priests. He believes in practical solutions for an esoteric world and has a handcrafted line of Orgone Pyramids that are used worldwide. His website is akada.com, and that's akaida.com. And please welcome Masaki to the show this evening. Good evening, Masaki.
Hi, Solaris. Glad to be
Hi.
here.
It's wonderful to have you on board tonight. I'm so looking forward to this conversation, and I did want to let everybody know about your incredible devices, your Orgone Pyramids. You were kind enough to send me some beautiful shungite Orgone Pyramid and some other devices, and I have to say they're phenomenal. They're very powerful, and they certainly block an awful lot of transmission. So thank you for doing that, and I encourage everybody to check out your products. They're phenomenal. They're very well made.
Well, I wanted to send you kind of like a sampler pack just so you could get, like a one-on-one hands-on experience with these pyramid energies. And I just saw, talked to you online a little bit, but you had a good response.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. And when I picked up the shungite, the first time when I first picked it up, it's a pretty good sized pyramid. I mean, literally, I could feel the signals getting blocked. And then I had the urge to put the smaller little devices on my ears because I was impacted with a lot of technology. And it seems like it actually is very soothing. So I don't know if people even have told you that before or not, but it just seemed like it felt good to even rest them on my body.
Well, in the esoteric, black is always protection, and it's sort of like a grounding color. So the shungite, I think a lot of people have heard about like the C60 supplement. Shungite actually has C60. That's what it's made of. So it's a natural EMF shield. So I add that to all my pyramids, not just the black shungite one. The other colored pyramids have shungite chips in them. But, basically, I think a lot of people have heard about the power of pyramids or pyramid power. Nowadays, if you go to holistic events, you'll see a lot of people with energy pendants, scalar pendants, tensor rings, and also Orgone pyramids. Some people say orgonite. There's like a copyright on it in the U.S., so I say Orgone pyramids, but it's basically the same thing. And it's a very simple way of balancing and harmonizing the energies in our chaotic, ever increasingly chaotic environment, right? Because we're in a great period of change. We have all this Wi-Fi, the cell phones around us. But guess what? There's a law in the esoteric that for every move, there's a counter move. So we just have to understand this energetic realm, right? That's sort of like the bandwidth we're moving into. So before, where you would know who the enemy is or there's a guy coming over the hill with a gun, right? Now it's more virtual. It's more abstract. It's that Aquarian air sign. So although these energies are quote unquote invisible to our naked eye, obviously they're there. If you go look on your computer to the Wi-Fi dropdown, how many hotspots are there? There's like 20 plus if you're in a big city. And those are all overlapping signals of chaotic energy that's, it's really affecting people's sleep. There's a lot of insomnia today. If you add that up over days, weeks, months, into years, that can actually lead to health problems, Right. And, it's just something to be aware of. And, once you get into this area and say, you know what, I want to try out some of these energy tools. The Orgone Pyramid's a great one. And, if it's properly made, you should see a difference within the first night or two.
Oh, I noticed it immediately. But then again, for the average Joe who just wants to shield from the regular toxicity of the environment with transmissions and frequencies, I can imagine that helps quite a bit immediately. For beings like me who are actually pulled into a technological interface, that is big. So I would say, I love the work that you're doing, and I think that I encourage everybody to participate and experience these beautiful devices. Now, how long does it take for you to create these?
Well, I have a range of different pyramids. The entry-level ones, which are, just like standard, basic Orgone pyramid, I could turn that around in like a day or two. But if it's because, I also, you probably notice I edge and polish all my pyramids, and like not everybody does that. kind of
Right.
Japanese thing, the
Love
fine
it.
detail,
Very
right?
cool.
But if it's a powered pyramid, there's like so many different steps because I custom make a lot of the parts and there's soldering and I have to not just make a beautiful piece of art, but it also has to be technically, working. So I have to test
Hmm.
the frequencies and all that. That could take maybe half a week to a week, depending on the size, you know?
Hmm.
So, making pyramids, honestly, you don't do this kind of thing for money
Right.
because there's a lot better ways to, make money. But what it did allow me to do over the past 5 years or so is, this is all I do 24/7. So I'm my own boss, right? And I think
Hmm.
that's one big thing for people that are kind of in our area that we're free thinkers, right?
Right.
Um, if you have a 9 to 5, sometimes you might hold your tongue because there's just some people that they don't want to know about the kind of information we're into. But
Right.
so it was kind of a combination of
Hmm.
things. I was interested in Orgone pyramids. I started making them myself. I was already like a really open mind, and then
Hmm.
I have that sort of the Vedic Buddhist background. So
Hmm.
all that came together, and trust me, it wasn't easy because the first couple years, month to month, just trying to survive. But in that time, time is money. So I had
Right.
all the time in the world to listen to internet shows, think about how to make my pyramids better. And, I'd be listening to your shows too,
Oh,
Solaris.
I'm
So
honored.
yeah, so it's sort of like interesting. It's full circle that, for many years, I'm just like a lot of your listeners. I was interested in this kind of information, but then it all came full circle, and I'm actually out there, talking about these pyramid energies now.
I'm so glad you are. I'll tell you what. And like I said, your technology and the way you create it is phenomenal. So I'm so glad you chose that course. And it will pay off, and I'm sure it's going to in more ways than you realize, especially on a spiritual level for people. How do you what technology do you use to test the frequencies of these devices?
Okay, so this is interesting. Okay,
Hmm.
um, the kind of energy coming off of energy tools. In this case, it would be the Orgone Pyramids, right?
Hmm.
It's the so-called, there's many names for it. The so-called orgone energy, Wilhelm Reich coined the term orgone.
Hmm.
You can call it chi, you could call it, prana. Uh, the Russians call it torsion field. I think it's commonly also called scalar energy. This kind of energy is not your typical electromagnetic, light or radio wave or microwave. It's it's sort of like another bandwidth. It's a precursor wave to the
Hmm.
standard EMF. So then how do you test it? Because if you have a standard field meter, you're the needle is going to show that all the frequencies are still there. It's not
Hmm.
really blocking them. But what's happening is there is an energetic component that is not recognized by the standard science, and it's basically when you're dealing with the Wi-Fi, the cell phones, and so forth, it
Hmm.
has this chaotic component which messes with biological systems.
Right. Yeah.
So, so then how would you test it? Well, basically, I use what many holistic practitioners use, which is the muscle test. You probably
Nice. Oh
know
yeah.
about that,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So if basically, if you have any energy tool, in this case it would be pyramids, but you can test anything.
Right.
You hold out one of your hands, put the pyramid in it, right? Maybe hold it close to your body. With the other hand, you would put it straight out, and you would have a friend just lightly place their hand on your wrist and push down a couple times. So you
Hmm.
do it with the pyramid and without the pyramid, and if it's strong, the resistance of the testee's arm it'll be like very firm.
Right.
And in the holistic field, they use this for like herbs, those kinds of things. Basically anything that raises the frequency of your body energetically, the nerves sense that, and the nerves are connected to the muscle. So it's sort of like a proxy. Other people use pendulum, like pendulum dowsing, and the
Right.
faster and wider the pendulum will swing, that will tell you the strength of the pyramid. And I guess the last thing would be just, the client feedback. So
Right.
at this point, I've sent out, hundreds of pyramids, and the most common feedback is better sleep, but also more vivid dreams.
Wow.
And if you're talking about, because I have a line of powered pyramids, with it, it's like 10 times stronger than the normal non-powered.
Nice.
We're starting to get feedback with people that are already doing energy work. And when you have a powered pyramid on, it's like you can imagine just the field of energy encompassing that room where the healing work is being done. It seems to really boost any kind of energy work or healing that people are doing.
Very good. I'm gonna have to get one of those. That's for sure. It's fascinating, and I like I said, I can just tell just from the one you sent me how powerful these things are. And like I said, people need to purchase these. These are phenomenal. I encourage everybody to check out your website. There's no doubt about that. And I think that for people who are quote unquote targeted individuals, a lot of people are getting hit with technology, and I think this can really help them. Like I said, I can tell just from where I've been with the technology interface. So I really I think your products are really good. And I've worked around that kind of orgone before. I mean, I've had different samples of things, and I've had those, but never like this. So there's definitely something very, very special about your work. There's no doubt about that. And I wanted to dive in a little bit about your Vedic Buddhist background. So give us an idea of what this is about, the lineage you have.
Well, my mother's side is a priest line. So Buddhist priests going back about 400 years. And then before that, they were samurai, which is kind of unusual because, most immigrants out of Japan, they were common people. That's why they moved, because they were looking, just like many immigrants, they came to America looking for work. So you talk to most Japanese Americans, I'm born and grown in Los Angeles. Usually they're farmers, farming background. But my family, at least my mom's side, they were sort of like of the priest warrior lineage.
Cool. Very nice.
Which is kind of unusual. And then, so growing up in the temple and hearing stories of the Buddha and just the absorbing there's sort of like a frequency to everything, right? So just in Buddhism, it kind of there's a little more openness, or they leave it open to which path you want to use to better yourself, whereas in some of the Judeo-Christian religions, it's a little more locked down, where it's definitely you do this and don't do that, right? But in Buddhism, they say, what is your practice? So your practice could be doing meditation, like zazen, lotus position meditation. Your practice could be like kung fu, like the Shaolin monks, right? Your practice could be calligraphy, could be flower arranging, anything that focuses your mind to raise it to another level, right? So the Buddha said, for yourself what's true. So if I said something and it doesn't work for you, you could try it another way. So just growing up from an early age in that environment, my mind was more open, I think, than it would have been otherwise. And now it's really interesting that working with these pyramid energies, it's all tying back to, my early years and what I grew up with. Because what do you think? Well, I'll say this. What is a common motif or symbol of Vedism and Buddhism? It's nothing less than the swastika, right? It's that solar sun symbol with the four arms of the swirling energy, right? Well, this is what the scalar energy of the pyramids and energy tools is. It's a swirling vortex energy.
Very, very interesting. Do you think that's why the Nazis use that symbol, because of the vortex of energy?
Yeah, and that's one thing about Vedism, that the darks, because all the Vedas is the truth.
Right.
So whatever however you come to the truth and you realize the truth, you are a Vedic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing about that is the dark side of Vedism is fascism.
Mm-hmm.
Because if this is very powerful information and very powerful concepts,
Mm-hmm.
but if you are coming from a limited egoist view and in a very, I would say, 3D mindset, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
are tapping into ultimate power, that can be very dangerous because
Right.
then you start thinking it's all about yourself. It's all about my particular tribe. We have the power. We have the knowledge, and we're dictating to everybody else, right? But the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, at the higher level, when you start understanding the true nature of energy, and you could say energy is spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you start understanding the higher levels, then you understand that even though we may look different, we come from different backgrounds, you may even totally disagree with somebody else. In actuality, at the higher level, we are all coming from the same energy. So how
Mm-hmm.
can you say, separate yourself? That that
Right.
it's basically the true understanding is a unity consciousness, and the lower level 3D materialist mind, the 3D mind of these AI transhumanists,
Mm-hmm.
that is a materialistic, very, low frequency viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Totally. That's a really
Mhm,
good description of that.
mhm,
I totally agree. Yeah, it's raising the vibration to that higher level of consciousness, and everybody would get along if they just shift gears a little bit here, right? So
mhm.
that's really good that you mentioned that for sure. What about a disintegration of implants? I mean, what is your take on implants first of all, and do you think that there's a capability with your particular devices to dissolve those?
I don't think it would dissolve them, but, I had mentioned off air that I do have some clients that are TIs and dealing with paranormal activity.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really make and, ship my pyramids out for that purpose. But from what I have seen and, my understanding, these kind of situations, no matter what you're dealing with, these kind of lower level entities or these kind of archontic mindsets that they try to trap us into their web, they just don't like high energy.
Yeah.
So I saw this really funny meme on Facebook the other day. It says, when you smile, a reptilian goes hungry.
Oh, that's cute. I like that
so,
one.
so basically, although the implants do exist, these programs do exist, there's all kinds of terrible things going on. But at the end of the day, a lot of things are based on our free will. Okay, so uh, just finding what we can practically do in our own space to raise the energy, and being aware of the smart meters, because I know a lot of TIs have problems with smart meters and so forth.
Mhm.
The Orgone Pyramids are a great way to at least start to tip the scales, to start to rebalance the energies in our space. And I think I'm not an expert, but this is just my own personal opinion that for the average person, they don't have to think about what I'm about to say. But for people that are dealing with these kind of deeper spiritual issues, that maybe TIs may have some kind of spiritual attacks and things going on, the energy tools will help. But then also doing your kind of spiritual excavation, seeing the deeper levels, maybe have some past life connections, things that need to be taken care of there.
Mhm.
I think that is one thing that a lot of people don't talk about. But
Correct.
I would
Yeah.
say the good thing though is we do live in a free will universe. So now you may not be aware of some things that happen in past life. You may have to go do some digging. You may have spiritual contracts. Maybe they're not even yours, like your grandfather was a mason or something, and that was passed down to you. But many of these things can be rewritten. The contracts can be broken. Energies can be balanced. So I think we have a lot of the tools
Hmm.
to make things right now. So it's just I just encourage people to try it out for yourself, because that's how I learned, seeing what people said online, trying it for myself. And you were talking about my pyramids. I took the basics of, how pyramids been made for like 20 plus years, but then, using things like the shungite, that automatically doubled the power of my pyramids. And
right.
just I'm Taurus rising. I'm Scorpio, Sun, Taurus rising.
Oh, intensity, man. Are you really? Wow.
So Taurus is all about the earth materials, right? The crystals,
right.
the metals, and then forming into like a very pleasing, high quality product. So,
right.
That's.
Did you say you were Scorpio, Sun?
I'm right at the crack of Scorpio, so I'm in the first 10 degrees. So wow. That's all deep occultism, right? You're either going to be in the light or the dark. There's no middle. There's no gray. And I'm Taurus rising. So
wow, that's pretty powerful. I'm Aries double Pisces. So
yeah,
I've got that 1 foot on the gas, 1 foot on the brake, too, in a weird way. No, it's good though. But yeah, that's good information you're sharing tonight for sure. I do love your lineage. I think that's very powerful. Now I have to ask you: did you feel like you needed to do anything with your vows or contracts or spiritual contracts with your ancestry? It doesn't sound like it, because to me,
yeah.
You did.
Okay. I mean, if you see somebody, because I'm in LA, right? And there's this whole wave of it's kind of like a new hippie movement. The new age got a boost, right. And if you see someone doing this kind of work and they're honest about it, typically they got their butt kicked. You don't just drop out of the sky, in a white garb, speaking all kinds of new age stuff. It's like, no, I went through, my stuff, and it took many years of cleaning out every day. A lot of in fact, I would say everything that I've done, it really wasn't for other people. It was for myself first.
Yeah.
And then it just happened that over time, I started finding that a lot of people, they didn't have this information, or they were looking for tools. And I just happened to be there to be able to help out, but everything, it was really I was asking questions myself. I was looking for answers myself. And that's how I, came to this point. But again, like I always say, although it wasn't easy at the time, it all happened for a reason. Because why would you get so deep into pyramid power? Why would you get into energy work? Why would you spend so many hours listening to shows like yours? Is because the kind of people that listen to your show, the kind of people that are interested in energy tools, energy work, pyramid power, they're of a little different mold. So the kinds of things that we're drawn to, it's a little different, but guess what? These are the energies that are coming in. And I think it's really helpful, and, it can be fun to work with these energies. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's the only way it's up, to me, in my opinion, the frequencies and transmissions associated. It's just, you can't lose with this type of technology, although I'm sure people detox on so many different levels with it. But have you made any jewelry yet with this, or no? I didn't look and see it.
Well, I have a couple pendants, but not the orgonite or orgone jewelry pendants, because, the orgonite material, it's composed of plastic resin, metal particles. Typically, they're like shavings off of a lathe. And then there's a quartz crystal. And you can add other stones, such as shungite. But it really benefits from the amount of material used. And, resin is kind of heavy for a pendant size.
Right.
So for for what the effect you're going to get versus the weight and the cost, I have a shungite pendant on my site. It's pretty cheap. It's like $15. And then I have tensor rings, which you may be familiar with these. And our friend James Bartley was actually the one that he was talking about tensor rings, and I had seen him around. But when he said it, it really triggered into my mind to really look into it further. So, tensor rings are a really great tool, and they basically have quote unquote pyramid energy, that high scalar energy. And the secret to these tensor rings is the length they're cut to. So if you and this is just copper wire that you can get at the hardware store, right? So this is why this is why I tell people, check it out for yourself, because even me, I was a little dubious if this actually works, because it's so seemingly simple. How can it be that powerful, right? But you take a length of wire from the hardware store and you cut it, okay? And this is the key. It's the length it's cut to, and they use the cubits, these sacred cubits from the megalithic world. So the typical one, the most common one people use, and my pendant has this, is the royal Egyptian cubit, or the sacred cubit from the Giza pyramid, right? Mm-hmm. So when you cut a length of wire to a certain length, it vibrates just like a tuning fork. Right. Okay. And then if you take that and you solder it and you just have a loop, right? Now one side is positive and the other side is negative. So it has polarity. Mm-hmm. But if you were to take that length of wire and add a twist in it, just like a helix, just like your DNA, okay? Mm-hmm. Now you solder it. Now it has no polarity. Both sides are positive.
Right.
And, the key to that twist, having the two wires, is basically snaking around each other, just like the caduceus, right? Mm-hmm. That's where that 0-point cancellation happens, where you can create that scalar energy.
Very nice.
So I recommend having a good orgone pyramid, put it on your bedstand, and then wear this copper tensor ring pendant, because when you're outside the house, it's kind of inconvenient to be walking around with a pyramid in your hand,
Can't wear one on my head. Yeah, I know.
but you can wear a pendant, Yeah. I mean, totally. I have the shungite pendants up too, and some people use a combination of both, but that tensor ring pendant is like very powerful.
That's what I need to buy. So I'll be purchasing one of those. It's funny because James kept telling me about that for I don't know how many conversations we've had on Skype, mm-hmm. and he's kept telling me. And so you're the one definitely to get that from. So yeah, very, very good. Yeah, he raves about those rings. He thinks they're very good.
Well, they say that. So this is the thing, right? Because really, it is a kind of technology with the Orgone pyramids, the orgonite, the tensor ring pendants, but it's actually very simple. So it's really just understanding the energies around us and how do we combine just base materials, right? Because for some people, I get the shavings for my pyramids off of eBay.
Oh, do you really?
For some, there's no pyramid store, Solaris. So you got to source the stuff from all over the world, right? So for somebody else, that might be a bag of trash. It's just metal shavings, right? Mm-hmm. But you take a little bit of the metal element. It's like, Chinese system, the metal element, then right. You got crystals and you put it all together and you have an excellent energy tool. So, right. I mean, that goes to show, and especially just that copper wire that becomes this energy pendant, the tensor ring pendant, right? That mm-hmm. shows you that it's really in the mind. It's your understanding of the concept and the energetics,
Very true. Yeah, mm-hmm. It's perfect alchemy, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. When you're working on those things, it's fascinating. Yeah, that's really good. And you were touching on the smart meters too, and I know that nowadays it's almost everybody and their mother has a smart meter. So I would say that would probably be a really good deterrent insofar as anything that's toxic within the house coming from the smart meters, to just put some of your orgone devices around.
Well, I would say at this point, people have to do something. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting a lot of people. I'm noticing, because I get orders all the time, but I'm noticing now at least once a month, I'm getting somebody like really stressed out about the smart meters and the Wi-Fi and stuff like that. Whereas before, I mean, they may have been going through those issues, but they wouldn't tell me directly, but I'm getting more and more people that they just can't sleep. Sometimes they feel like they're getting pinpricks. I've heard that. Mm-hmm. I've heard like I'll have a fever or I'm on fire or something like that. And, it's because every day there's this more and more electronic pollution being put in. And I'm sure you know about the 5G too. I mean,
right. Yeah, I was going to ask your interpolation of that. What's your impression of this 5G?
well, I can't say for sure what's going to happen when they put it in. Because for the people that have energy tools, I think you're going to be protected. But these waves are so intense. It's a millimeter wave, right? It's basically the same as those body scanners in the airport that rip your DNA apart.
That's horrible.
Unzips your DNA. But because these waves, they're more energetic, so peak to peak is more compacted, right? So the result of that is it doesn't pass through objects as well. It can even be blocked by, just some things in your house, like the walls, So they have to put the transmitters closer together. So I think it's something like every 100 meters or every couple 100 feet. So basically every couple houses, they're going to have another transmitter.
That's crazy. I'm sorry. That's just nuts. Go ahead.
In a big city, I mean, I think LA has like 10 million people. I mean, so how many more, cell towers and Wi-Fi towers are they going to put in? I think naturally people who are awake, something in their subconscious is already telling them to seek this information out. And they may not even know it. They may just be listening to shows like yours. And then when they have a guest on, it triggers on their mind. Oh, Wi-Fi, 5G. Yeah, I got to start, looking for tools to make sure that, your home is your castle. So keep the energy balanced in your space. But
yeah,
I don't know about those average people that, they never even thought about it. But a lot of our kind of people, they're already aware of it, or they're looking into it these days.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm thinking about the cars too that are all loaded up. They're just like expensive toasters, I guess. I mean, literally, everybody's getting fried from the inside out.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing is basically the entire way our society is set up is backwards. So, I mean, people think that the electric cars are the way to go, but I'm sure, I mean, a lot of people have said this, but there are reports of people who have electric cars that are getting fatigued, just like you get computer fatigue.
Yeah.
Oh, it's no wonder, because your whole car is like wired up and you're sitting inside it,
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
And then also there's a concept or an area that we're not really taught about in school, which is the shape power. So, obviously, with the Orgone Pyramids, you could make this material into any shape. You can make it into a sphere. You can make it into a cube. But one of the best energetic shapes is the pyramid. But if you look around in our society, what do we live in?
Boxes.
Is metal cubes, right? And that's all Saturn stuff, right? It's it's a black cube, right? So
I don't like those cubes. I have real issues with that.
So if we were in ET and we landed and we looked around and looking at all these people looking at these corporate box cubes, they'd say, wow, we got a problem here. Might want to add some spheres and egg shapes and pyramids or something.
I totally agree. I love the spheres and I love the pyramids. Yeah, it flows energetically speaking. You're right. Completely. What a difference. There's no doubt about that one. Yeah, I think people should tune into that and pay attention to some of the things they're deploying. Now, I know off air we touched on a little bit about, I'm just curious insofar as what your take is, first of all, on the U.S. and insofar as the toxicity and all the misuse of technology and all this. Do you think there's a safe haven somewhere across the world where people would have less contamination with this type of a transmitter?
Well, everywhere is kind of being this, it's all getting flattened out, and every place is kind of becoming the same nowadays.
Right.
But I would say it's probably the worst in the Western countries, particularly U.S., but kind of like the Anglosphere, the U.K., some parts of Western Europe. One thing I noticed is that there's a movement towards some of these tropical areas south of the equator.
Right. Yeah.
And so what do the people with money and influence know that we don't know? And I took a trip recently to Australia because I'm aware of these trends. And, I've been to Brazil many times. It's a little unstable now in Brazil. And I went there for many years, so I know what that's about, but I'd never been to Australia. So, Australia, it's a Western country, but it's certainly not as heavy energetically as where I am in Los Angeles.
Oh,
and
gosh,
they
I
have
bet.
they have a lot of the same problems that we do as far as the vaccination and the school, the education they're giving them, and they do have Wi-Fi, and they're trying to put in 5G, but it's not as bad as it is here. So, and I noticed a lot of these cryptocurrency millionaires are moving to places like New Zealand and Australia and so forth.
Heard that too. New Zealand especially. Yep.
So is it totally free of the problems? Probably not. But and I'm living in the U.S. right now, but I am aware that of the places in the world that are going to have problems going into the foreseeable future is definitely the USA and Los Angeles. How many movies have you seen about fireballs coming out of the skies? Make that better moves.
Yeah, you might want to pay attention to your internal radar system. There's no doubt. Yeah, that sounds like probably a plan is to maybe move out towards that area. There's no doubt about it.
I will say though that having been born and grown up in LA, I was privy to, and I've seen firsthand so many things that, you get kind of an insider's view. So, I grew up just in my own life with a lot of paranormal things happen to me here. So that kind of forced me into the, that archetypal underworld and to look for the healing tools and then to come out the other end. And here I am. So if I hadn't had grown up in LA, I don't think I would be making Orgone Pyramids today.
Wow. So there it is. It's interesting. So we were touching this also off air, but I did want to kind of dive into it a little bit about the type of activity that's over there, the supernatural activity, the paranormal. Do you think that California is more intense with supernatural activity than maybe other states?
I would say that if you are interested in all the high weirdness, Southern California is a hot spot. So, our friend James Bartley was down in San Diego for years. So, I think one of the factors is just that you have so many of the bases here, the military bases. You have, traditionally the aerospace industry and so forth here. And you have that Hollywood entertainment factor here. So the triangulation of the three, you're going to have all kinds of stuff, you can imagine.
Right. Yeah.
But then also, this is an ancient land. So, whatever you want to call it, Lemuria and so forth. I do believe that there is a vortex or vortices in this area. But there's the ancient myths of the local tribes that they used to be their land. They used to guard and maintain the energies here. But what happens when these people are dispossessed? Well, the portal's still there, but maybe there's things coming from the lower depths coming out of these portals now.
Right. Yeah, they're getting hijacked or something. Yeah. That's another thing, too. I'm wondering if all these portals and all these gateways and these, ascension gateways or potential ascension gateways are getting hijacked with the technology nowadays, that it's a distortion now. It's almost like a wormhole versus just a pure portal or a vortex.
They're doing all kinds of things, but I would just say that we on ourselves are very powerful spiritual beings. So if we one by one rebalance the energies in our space, we just get it down to the simple things. We're getting good sleep, right?
That's big.
Having good dreams, and you're refreshed and ready for a new day. And especially for our kind of people, one by one, and we start radiating an energy, and we kind of touch people in our own lives. So I think that is very powerful. And because I love conspiracy and I love looking into these kind of things for years, right? But I think there's a point where you've kind of learned enough. Even if something new comes up, it's like, oh, false flag. Oh, we know what that is, or now what are you going to do about it practically, right? So that this is where I really felt a shift in my life. Is I had been listening to all of this kind of alternative information since around like 2000. And I started making pyramids maybe 2014 or something like that. Oh, so 14 years of every day, just kind of what's going on in this world. What is really going on, right? But it can be kind of depressing if you know all this information, but you can't do anything because a lot of these agendas, they're so much larger than just one person. But, through the understanding of the quantum reality, actually, when one piece pivots, it can start a domino effect of everything else turning, right?
Exactly.
What's that in, I don't think any scientist can explain when a flock of birds in the sky, all of a sudden everything just turns. How do they all know to do that? So we're all kind of interconnected. So when I started making Orgone pyramids by hand, and then I give it to somebody, or they get it from my shop and I ship it out, and then I get the feedback, hey, I'm getting better sleep. That's hilarious. That was a major turn because I'm like, wow, I did something, and that's like confirmation. That's like real. I really did something with my own hands, and I made a concrete change. And that was so liberating because you're no longer in that fear-based mentality, of kind of being a deer in the headlights. There's so much stuff going on. But how do you, as one person, kind of, I don't like the word pushback, but that's kind of what it is. Basically, you are expanding your energetic space, because what this is even these bits of information, they're kind of encroaching on your space. They're pushing you in. It's like there's so many of these agendas and crazy things going on. But what can you, as one person, affect a positive change? Well, this is one way with Orgone Pyramids. And, the great thing is, I make them, I sell them. But this is a DIY movement because the instructions are online. You can go out there and make it yourself, or you can go buy it from, any of the suppliers online. I can only vouch for mine because, you saw that mine are pretty strong.
Oh, they're powerful, big time. Yeah.
But the basic idea is this is DIY. You are taking, that old punk mentality. I'm taking it DIY in my own hands, and we can do something to make our lives better.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I call it a resonance effect too. That's pretty much what you're doing. You are putting those ripples in and helping everybody. And like I said, I think that it's a beautiful gift you're giving everybody with what you're doing. That's a wonderful thing you're doing. Maybe you're not aware of it, but I think you are. But that's, totally. This is something that's well needed. It changes the vibration, not for every person that gets, and acquires one of these devices. That's going to change. It is that resonance effect that I really like. So yeah, that's really, really powerful. When you had your spiritual, supernatural, did you see ghosts or spirits, or what was going on when you had that supernatural?
A lot. Well, being in I think people that are sensitive or intuitive, you can see this kind of stuff anywhere. But being in LA, there's just, there's a whole occult underground too. If you're involved in the Hollywood industry, or if you go to some of the art galleries here in town, or you go to some of these downtown warehouse parties, there's kind of a level of occultism that might only be recognized if you have the keen eye to see it, but it's there. So some of these things that I've heard over the years, I didn't see personally. It was told to me by a friend, but there were some things that I saw myself. But one story that you were kind of interested in is there are definitely hollowed out underground spaces underneath LA. So
Yeah.
I won't say the specific place, but there's a studio. It's one of the older studios in town that has I can't say what it is, but it could be an underground base because my buddy, he was working on the lot. It's a Hollywood studio lot, and he was working there, and they knew that he was sort of a conspiracy head. So they said, "Oh, you're going to love this," because I guess it was a well-known rumor. They say you go to this building, and there's like an elevator, like a service elevator. You take that down, and there's stuff down there. So he went, and so I don't know if it's an underground base, but he said basically the street level, it's just like a Hollywood lot. It's a studio production lot. You go down, he goes, it looks like NASA.
Really? Holy cow.
He said these hallways went as far as the eye could see, and the sides were the polished metal. He says they were so shiny. It was like you could eat off of them,
Wow.
And then he got kind of scared because he was afraid he was going to get lost, And then people were walking around, and he didn't have a badge and stuff, so he just ran back to the elevator and hit that button and went back up. But I've known that guy for years, so there's something underneath some of these lots in LA.
Wow, very interesting.
I can't say what it is, but he said it was definitely to the eye, like not what you would expect to. It didn't look like Hollywood stuff. It looked like something else. He said,
Very interesting. It's like multi-layered. Civilizations almost. I was going to say surveillance or security, but sounds like something more hardcore than that. That's for sure.
Well, the thing is that it's obvious to me being born and grown in LA, but when you look at the news or you look at movies or even things that are now, because of the younger generation, they're all on Instagram and Snapchat and those kinds of things. The major, like, quote unquote influencers, right? The major people that have like millions of followers, I would say probably a big chunk of them they're being handled in some way. They may not even know it because a lot of them have managers and so forth. The movies, obviously, they have agendas put into them. So this is all basically state media. You know how people used to look at the communist era and say, it's pretty laughable, the kind of propaganda that's coming out of like Soviet Russia or China and so forth. But what do you think we have? It's the same thing. It's just that we do it a lot better. So the Edward Bernays propaganda, like we have like half naked girls in bikinis running around and, shiny cars. So it's at that level, and the pumping music and so forth. So at that level, it's like even more hypnotizing and enticing. So it's just like, and I'm sure if you really did your homework, you could probably prove that, Netflix and these kinds of things, it all goes to the same. It's basically all one company or something like that. But it's just that we do it a lot better. It's, and I've worked when I was younger. Like any kind of product packaging, it has all the nutritional information and stuff like that. And that's called copy, right? So a lot of people that are not in a place like LA or New York, they don't even realize that even the very words and things on everything you buy, that's written by somebody, So, growing up in a media heavy advertising environment like Los Angeles, a lot of us kids that grow up in this environment, like we understand very early on that it's all spin and hype and propaganda, and things are made in a way to make you think a certain way or buy this product or so forth.
Yeah, that makes sense. Indoctrination at an early age, but you're very switched on. It sounds like you were extremely switched on even as a child.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult when your eyes are open,
Right. Yeah, and that's good, and that's very powerful, no doubt. So, have you ever had anything connected to? And I was curious because of your devices. I was wondering if they would kind of block maybe people who have quote unquote alien abductions, or have you heard anything with people who have purchased your Orgone devices?
Yeah, I had I won't say the name, but I had a couple that one of them had written a book about the whole alien phenomena, alien abduction phenomena, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I had sent them, I think, 2 pyramids, and they were kind of surprised that they said it cut down the paranormal activity a lot. I don't know if it was 100%, but I've heard that off and on because I had another client in LA and she had some of the most hardcore paranormal stuff I'd ever heard of. Where there was some kind of portal and there was little munchkin beings coming in the middle of the night, when she was trying to sleep. It was one of those things that like, the person is hiding under the covers and she would always have the TV or light on because there's so much activity. But she said when she got the pyramids, it cut it down a lot.
Excellent. And hang on for a second here. We're going to head for a break. This is excellent information, everybody. You listen to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris Blue Raven. I have my wonderful guest with me tonight. I'm very excited. So stay tuned and we'll be right back with my wonderful guest tonight is Masaki Miyagawa. Stay tuned. Hold on.